want to take a few minutes and review partial product multiplication, which for parents may be kind of a foreign concept. I know it was when Sam and Eddie would bring home partial product papers when they were around the 4th grade age. So it's kind of confusing to us, but basically what we're looking at is multiplying numbers by each place value separately and then just adding it together. So if you think of a number like 25, and you don't think of it as 25, you think of it as more expanded form, like 20 plus 5. And then if you were going to take that number and multiply it times 6, instead of taking 6 times 25 the way we traditionally do, we would take 6 times 20, and then we would take 6 times 5, and we would add those together. And the way we write it in class is we basically generally will use boxes like this. And so we'll break 25 down into 20 and then 5, each place value, and then we'll multiply 6 times 20. Well, we'll do our 6 times 2, which is 12. We'll add our 0. We'll do 6 times 5, which is 30. And then over to the side somewhere, we'll add 120 plus 30, and you get 150 is what you do. So it seems like a little more work involved, but it gives the students just another way of solving it. And over the last few years that I've taught it, I have noticed there are some students who seem to think that's easier, and I do like to give them some options for multiplying if the traditional method just doesn't quite make sense. So if you had a 3-digit number, for example, let's say it was 415 times 8. We would line up the 8 under the 415. We would multiply and carry our groups and things like that. But if we're going to do partial product, we would put the 8 here, and then we'd draw our box again. And this time we'd split it into 3 columns because we have 3 place value spots. And again, think expanded form, 400 plus 10 plus 5. 8 times 4 is 32, add 2 zeros. 8 times 10 is just 80, and 8 times 5 is 40. Then you would come over here and you would add 80 and 40. Oops. 3 and 3 and 3. And so one reason that I like this, and one reason we do this in class, is I like the kids to be able to check their work, especially as they're learning this. And so if they use the traditional method and then they use the partial product method and just go by place value, then it gives, and the two answers are different, then something somewhere is wrong. They've made a mistake somewhere, and it gives them that opportunity to find and correct their mistakes. Another way to look at this, just the same thing, just looks a little different, would be to take 683 times 4 and write it more in the traditional way, but do the same thing. Take 4 times not 6, but 4 times 600, which would be 2400. 4 times 80, 4 times 8 is 32, add a 0, 320, and 4 times 3 is just 12. And then you would just add it right there. You'd have those same products you had when you used the boxes, but sometimes you'll see it written like this. So this would just be multiplying the hundreds place. This would be the tens, and this would be the ones. So we're still multiplying just by place value, as opposed to the way we traditionally multiply. And we will be going over the traditional way in addition to what's called the lattice method. So they'll have 3 different ways, and I will encourage them, especially initially, to use all 3 ways and be familiar with them. It just helps them make sure their answers are correct and gives them additional practice, that's all. If it was a 2-digit number, we may introduce those this week or next week also. But it would be the same type thing. Let's say you had 37 times 52. Then our boxes are going to get bigger because we've got place values for both numbers, so you're going to have 4. So we'll put the 30 plus 7 and 50 plus 2 like that. And then you're just kind of, you take 5 times 3, or 3 times 5 is 15. There are 2 zeros there. And then we would do 7 times 5 is 35. You'd add a 0 there. And you'd do 3 times 2 is 6, add a 0, and then you'd have 14 there. And then you'd come over here and you'd smash all these together by adding all these up like this. And go through it. And you can see the more steps you create, of course, the greater the chance you're going to make an error. But again, it's a method, a way of checking. So this is what we'll be doing next week with partial product multiplication. Hopefully it helps explain it a little bit. I know, again, it's something I never did in school, or if I did, I certainly forgot. And I know that when our kids went through 4th grade, it seemed unbelievably confusing to me. So I just wanted to take a minute to explain it to you, and of course you can show your kids this too and explain it to them too.